Without further ado, let's talk a little bit about predicting the gubernatorial election.
Rick, Shaun, Bill, take it away.
Okay, Shaun Wilson, Truscott, Rossman, thanks for joining us.
Thank
Bill
you.
Nowling, Lambert, Edwards, both seasoned communications professionals with history in state politics. Bill and I actually go back a long ways from your time in the Michigan Senate.
And you still had me on, so that's a good time.
Someone else.
I'm the man in the middle here.
So the title of the session is Predicting the Gubernatorial Election. And considering what we've seen in 2016, can we really predict a race, both the primary and the general, this far out? And let's start at the far end with Bill.
Well, I think if you're looking for a prediction, I think you have to go back in the past and look at how the races, both in Michigan and nationally, set up in 2010. Obama had negatives that were in the 40s, and there was a net 900-seat swing in legislative races across the United States. It was a big year for Republicans. We have those same numbers, yet the intensity of the negative against Trump is much higher. So I think that part is unknown yet, and that's what makes predicting it. I think Republicans are swimming against the stream this year, but there is opportunity to do those, and those numbers are coming back. But it's a tough year for Republicans, no doubt.
Yeah, and it's a tough year for Democrats. Going back on the national scene, I think the Democrats are looking for a message. If you ask 10 Democrats what their message is, you'll get 10 different answers. So the irony of this session predicting the gubernatorial election, it's very unpredictable at this point. And I think at the debate last night was a testament to just how in disarray we are with this race with no clear standout.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let's talk about the debate last night. Okay, first question is, so today, 6 candidates, 1 hour. I mean, that they covered a lot of ground. Who's celebrating today, and who's in mourning?
Well, I was looking around, and if you're a candidate and you're walking around the parlor today, you're in mourning because, you're trying to figure out what was going on. The two people we really haven't seen this morning, and I think that they were the winners last night, were Bill Schuette and Gretchen Whitmer. I think that if you looked at how the differences between their answers and their positions on the issues, much more thought out, much more polished. There was a big degree of separation between those two and the others that were on the stage with them last night. So I think that those two were the clear winners. But to Shaun's point, there really was no message that came out except for the very base message that each candidate spoke to their constituencies about. This was not a debate for the people at the Mackinac conference. They were talking to people downstate that were going to turn out in the primary elections. And so you had very partisan, very what I would call standardized answers to energize their base to get them to turn out to vote.
Well, in this environment, considering the data that Bill was just talking about and the prospect of a blue wave in November, and of course we're focused more right now on the August primary, but does it matter what these guys say, or do they just have to figure out how to surf the prevailing tide?
I think they have to, a little bit of both. I mean, people are looking for substance. They're looking for strong policy issues. I'm not sure if education was a strong point. I didn't see the debate, I'll be honest with you, but I know people are really concerned about education. I think Dr. Vitti had a standout moment here, a drop the mic moment in his presentation. Folks in Detroit are particularly interested in what we're going to do from an educational standpoint, and I don't think that was discussed the way it should have, especially from the Democratic side.
Are you hearing, is there any breakout message that's either, that's waiting for people to talk about?
Well, fix the damn roads was what I heard yesterday.
And the schools.
And the schools, and that's the problem. I mean, they tend to be platitudes, and they're not really depending on if you're Republican or Democrat, not necessarily a base issue. I mean, I thought that Schuette stumbled on the education question quite a bit, but he was fine in other places. I thought his answer on the road, he had a plan. He was able to articulate it very clearly. So it was fine for that. I thought that the most impassioned I saw Lieutenant Governor was when he was talking about education. We specifically talking about special education, because I know that's something that's
near and dear
to his heart. So it was good to see him warm up and come out and do that. But it was a hard environment to really kind of pick out what were going to be the themes going forward.
And that's just my question is, everyone says that they're pro-education. We're going to fix the roads, we're going to fix the schools, and then you get into the minutia of policy debates, but there doesn't seem to be, at this juncture at least, some breakout message that separates one or two of the candidates from the rest of the pack. I mean, really, it's in terms of the debate, Bill and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't think candidates win debates so much as they either survive them or lose them.
So I think what was interesting is that for all of the money that Sri Tanadar has spent just for folks to get his name right, he really didn't have a good performance yesterday. And if anybody was took a hit from the debate, I think it was him. So for all the input he's put into folks getting his name right, he needs to sharpen his message.
And yet you go to the rest of the state, if the public opinion research is to be believed, and there are reasons to believe it and reasons to not believe it, that he's one or two in most of the.
Well, I think he spent the most money up to now.
He has clearly spent the most money.
So look, we're in a primary season. We've got a full slate of candidates, and primary elections are different than general elections. Primary elections are about finding your voters, keeping them happy, and making sure that they turn out
in August.
And if you listen to the messages yesterday, all of the messages from all the candidates were geared to make sure that all of their constituencies understood where they, on those very important issues. We're very fragmented now. Candidates do not spend time convincing voters that they're right or wrong. They spend time making sure that they're connecting with people that think just like them. And that's part of the reason why we're polarized.
I mean, they spend time getting people to like them until they get down to the nitty-gritty of the primaries.
And yet still, we've got a little bit of time, but right now, the leader of the pack in both primaries is undecided.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
but that's always the case. And,
yes.
As people kind of spill off in those polls of saying I'm not going to vote, you start to see how that shapes up. I'm not so much worried about polls at this point. You look at the candidates that have the strongest machine. Good candidates win elections.
Right.
Bill Schuette, Gretchen Whitmer, they're good candidates. As I said, it's like playing Alabama. These teams are going to be well coached. They're going to be fast, they're going to be tough, and they got to make a mistake for you to beat them. And I think that's where we're at right now.
Well, one thing to think about is maybe this is the year where the running mate makes a difference. I know Gretchen has floated out potential candidates. It would be critical for her.
Syed has also set up a process for.
He set up a process, though, but maybe this is the year where the running mate really makes the difference on who that standout candidate is.
Well, there can, but what would a running mate? How would a running mate be a game changer? Like I'm thinking back to when Jim Blanchard was running to replace Bill Milliken, and he bought himself some gravitas by putting veteran Congresswoman Martha Griffiths on the ticket. That's the last time I can remember a running mate really being a game changer.
Only three things happen when you name a running mate, and two of them are bad. So it's like your debate theory is that you survive it. You get somebody that's not going to weigh you down, is not going to do that in there. But it's really
and it's not going to outshine you.
Yeah, you don't want somebody to outshine you either.
So there's a sleeping giant in Detroit, a regional Southeast Michigan, that hasn't been awoken probably since the Obama election. So that running mate, perhaps like a Garland Gilchrist, who was kind of trotted out early as a potential running mate, could be the person that connects her to the community and really gets people excited about her candidate.
Well, looking ahead to November, if Democrats are going to win, Democrats are going to have to deal with their turnout problem. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
Getting these folks out, because as we know, Southeast Michigan can make a difference and be the deciding vote for the election.
Yeah, John Boehner referenced it in his talk. He said that elections are decided by people who show up.
Right. Absolutely.
And pollsters don't necessarily do a good job of identifying the people who are going to show up.
Well, because you don't know they're going to show up until they do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So, I want to circle back to the primary, though, because the general will be determined by turnout. The primary is the one where the general, you've got to identify your base and make sure that they turn out. Hopefully, you've healed the rifts that have occurred in the primary. But how do you break out when you've got so many candidates in both primaries. What should we be looking for next now that these people are about to leave the island?
Well, I think you're going to see candidates continue to speak to those, core wing-based issues, either on the right or the left, because it's really about identifying those voters. There's no time to go out and convince undecided voters. There are no really undecided voters in the primary. People are turning out to support somebody that they're activists within the party, they're connected, they're turning out to support their candidate. So I think you're going to see them continue to do that, and then maybe a code switch right after the primary and start to talk to a more general Michigan electorate audience.
But some of the candidates are speaking more to a grassroots audience. I'm thinking in terms of Shri, Tanadar, El Sayed, and Gretchen, are really striking a chord with some of the grassroots audience as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can buy name ID. You can't buy organization, although you can buy part of, somewhat, by part of it. But you can't buy organization. Who's best organized right now?
Oh, I think without a doubt it's Schuette, and on the Republican side, Schutte's more organized. He has more endorsements locked up. I mean, he's running. I like to say he's running a campaign from 1994, but it's a good campaign. It's a traditional Republican primary campaign that I think is strong. I think it's going to. And I'm undecided I haven't endorsed anybody in the election, but he's running the best campaign right now, the most organized, I think, on our side.
Okay. What about in the entire field? Would you say he's more organized than Whitmer?
To me, it just seems a little more organized than Whitmer. I'm not that familiar with Gretchen's campaign structure, but there's time for her to lock that in before the general campaign starts.
Yeah, I would agree to some extent though, but she is very organized. She just needs to be more stronger in the Detroit market.
Mm-hmm. And how does she get stronger in the Detroit market?
Well, it could go back to that running mate. It could go back to make some selective hires of her campaign team, strengthening that campaign team in Detroit, though. But she has a pretty good team, just need to shore it up in Detroit.
Would it be a good idea for her to start naming a cabinet?
Probably not this early in the game.
I mean, it would be a little nerdy, but it would also be a little bit bold.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it this early, but probably closer to the primary, when we really try to get those voters out. It may be a good opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this stage of the game, no matter if you're running for governor or state legislature, it's knock on doors, raise money, talk to voters.
Yep.
Get up the next day, do it again. And that's what they need to be doing right now.
Okay, so I'll start with you. Generic Republican candidate going into the primary, leaving the island. Bill, what's your advice for them now?
Knock on doors, raise money, talk to voters, get up tomorrow, and do it again. People and candidates that do that, I don't care what side of the aisle on, they win elections, and that can't be, and especially in times where the tides are tough for Republicans, they need to go out and knock on more doors to reconnect with the voters that elected them.
Are candidates that are not on the air making a mistake?
No.
Okay.
They need to be knocking on doors.
Shaun, just got
I would agree, but also focus on the issues that really matter to people: education, fix the roads, the economy. Focus on those key issues and get